oil-rich Niger Delta region has for more than 60 years been the goose that lays the golden egg for Nigeria. Within that time, oil produced in the region has yielded billions of dollars worth of infrastructure in every part of the country, in addition to attracting enormous volumes of foreign direct investment. Ironically, the success story of oil has to a large extent gradually become a source of national embarrassment for Nigeria, owing to years of pervasive corruption in the management of funds accruing from it. The people of Niger Delta have not been spared the ensuing opprobrium simply for a perceived inability on the part of its citizens to put their best foot forward when presented with an opportunity to contribute to its development. Joining us now for greater insight into all of this is Hon Henry Nwawuba, who represents Mbaitolu Ike-Duru Federal Constituency in Imo State and is Deputy Chairman, House of Representatives Committee on the Niger Delta. Good morning and welcome to the program.
A very good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Very quickly, the big issue with regard to the Niger Delta and the oil and gas sector is the PIB, the Petroleum Industry Bill, which the executive were told has now forwarded to the National Assembly. What are your expectations? Do you think that the bill, as it is now, given the details that we know so far, will address the interests of all the stakeholders, the joint venture partners, government seeking to deepen that sector, and also particularly the host communities?
Once again, very good morning to you. Oh yes, certainly. The Petroleum Industry Bill has been in the making for at least 18 years. The National Assembly tried to pass it in the 6th Assembly, the 7th Assembly, and even the 8th Assembly. The difference being that in the 8th Assembly, it became a private member bill, broken into 4 bills: the administration bill, the governance bill, the fiscal bill, and the 4th being the host community bill, which was passed by both parliaments in National Assembly, but was denied accent by the president. It has now been returned to the 9th Assembly as an executive bill with a lot of pomp and pageantry expectations globally, not just in Nigeria. I can confirm to you that yesterday, when I was having a meeting with the government liaison person from the American Embassy, he told me that he got a call at 4 a.m. from the United States to confirm that Nigeria had indeed, the executive had indeed submitted the bill back to the National Assembly. So there's a lot of expectation. And because it's taking so long in the making, we definitely expect that all the things that would make for a robust oil and gas industry would be captured in the bill. Of course, it will be exposed to legislative fireworks. We are going to put it through our bill-making cycle. I am aware that the leadership of the House of Representatives has constituted a technical committee that will work on this bill. The committee is made up of relevant committees of the oil industry and, of course, the region. So it is a bill that is long been expected by Nigerians, and definitely we hope that it's going to provide the panacea that we're looking for in the oil industry.
When you hope for a panacea, what specific areas are you looking to?
Well, the first thing would be governance, obviously, because that is the bedrock of the building blocks. If we can input the governance that will build a stronger institution for regulation of the industry, for transparency, so that we can have the confidence from the investing communities to come and look at our oil industry the same way that it is looked at everywhere. Of course, you know that investment will go to the clients that are most favorable. So everybody would look for what is attractive, and the lack of a petroleum industry bill in Nigeria for this long has actually cost this country in terms of the foreign investment needed in the sector to bring out you know, Nigeria has a proven reserve of about 40 billion barrels. At 2 million barrels a day, we're looking at our oil running out in about 55 years. So if we have 55 years worth of oil available for this country, definitely we need to put strong laws, make it attractive, protect the people that are coming with the investments to ensure that the dividends and the benefits come out to everyone.
I mean, what's your take on the approach of using developmental vehicles to develop the Niger Delta, like SPVs of some sort, special purpose vehicles? Because we've heard from the days of UMPADAC to now the NDDC, but it has not worked. Some will say it's worked in little proportions, but some will argue with you that it's not worked. So what's your take on using developmental vehicles as regards development of the region?
Well, I think it's a work in progress. You're right, UMPADAC kickstarted it all. Since then, we have had the NDDC, the Niger Delta Development Commission. In 2008, President Yar'Adua created the Ministry of Niger Delta, followed in 2009 by the Presidential Amnesty Program. We have the 13% derivation. So many CSR opportunities or interventions by the oil companies, state governments also playing in the area. There's an 80 report that about 83 trillion has been generated by the extractive industries in Nigeria in the last 4 years. We have a report also that about 2.16 trillion has gone into the NDDC since 2001. So there has been a lot of concerted government effort to bring around the much needed development on ground. I agree with you that we cannot really match the effort with things on ground, and that is why recently, when I was moderating a high-level virtual conference on host community issues in Nigeria, we talked about a multi-layered stakeholder engagement. We are running with a Niger Delta master plan that is over 10 years old. After COVID struck, after this pandemic, nothing has remained the same. There's no more normal. It is necessary to look at issues again. The Ninth Assembly is aligning its legislative agenda to turn the House of Representatives into an engine room for innovation in policy. And that is what is needed right now. We need to go back and take a second look at all the issues that were set out as objectives when these interventions were being rolled out, and see if there's a way to recalibrate. This is a time to recalibrate, and it is going to involve all of us. Unfortunately, what I've seen is that most Nigerians are disconnected from the business of governance. And you know that if you have an ignorant society, it's not an asset to any nation. We need to get involved. We need to ask the right questions. This parliament is positioned. We've been waiting for the petroleum industry bill. We want to see the turnaround on ground, and it's going to take a collaboration between all stakeholders to get this done.
Well, let me ask you, oil was discovered in Oloibiri in 1956 by Shell, and then 2 years later, production started, exploration started. Now it's been more than 60 years since then. Nigeria itself will be 60 years in 2 days' time after independence. Will you say oil has been a blessing to Nigeria or a curse, and particularly for the host communities that you talked about earlier?
So the Niger Delta is an area of about 70,000 square kilometers. There are 9 states in alphabetical order. We have Abia, we have Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Cross River, Delta, Edo, Imo, Ondo, and River states. We have about 13,400 mostly rural communities in the Niger Delta. There are about 800 facilities, oil facilities, with about 900 active wells in the region. Over the 60 years, I can tell you that there still remains a gap. Yes, people have said that the extractive industries have actually not been beneficial, but I think it is our duty after 60 years to look at the reasons why and see how we can actually begin to turn the tide around. It is doable. Oil is not even necessary for development. Japan does not have oil. So many countries in the world do not have oil, and they've been able to turn themselves around and move in the right direction. So it is a conversation that is necessary. We are obviously going to use legislative tools to ensure that these things are done. we're having an eye on the population of Nigeria. We are expecting a population, Nigeria is chasing 400 million people in the next, maybe by the year 2040. And one of the biggest issues is data. We don't even know what is what in Nigeria. But I know that our medium-term expenditure framework and the budget is predicated on two basic assumptions. One being the price of crude, and two, the number of barrels per day. Obviously, we factor in the exchange rate and all of that. So this is a time, like I said, for all hands, everybody is a partner in this. We need to bring the dividends to those regions. The regions are crying. I mean, the reasons why the then President Yar'Adua set up the Presidential Amnesty Program, if you recall, in 2009, production came down to 700 barrels per day because of the activities of militants in the region. Some of those reasons why they disarmed, they were demobilized, and we have started the process of reintegration are still to be met on ground for those host communities. We're seeing serious environmental degradations, pollution of their main source of livelihood, which may be fishing, even farming for their lands. So there's quite a lot of gaps. And it is not just by waiving the Petroleum Industry Bill that we turn things around, but by conscientious teamwork in the region. That is how we're going to see the tide being turned around.
We certainly hope so, because a lot of what we see so far is just lip service being paid, such as like the Ogoni cleanup and what have you. Can you tell us concrete advances that your community has secured for the people of Niger Delta? That's my first question. And my second question is that we all saw the way COVID-19 completely decimated the oil industry. So it's no longer as reliable as a form of revenue generation. And the whole world is looking to rebuild in a more green fashion post-COVID-19. You even have China, the world's biggest polluter, going green. Let's talk about renewable energy as a future for Nigeria.
I totally agree with you. Obviously, the fossil days are numbered, but if you know that 70% of the crude production in the world is still used in the transport industry, you know that we're still going to have to depend or migrate slowly. But I do agree with you. Nigeria is essentially, in my opinion, a gas country. We went in search of oil, but what we really have is the cleaner energy, which is called gas. And we need to look at gas from a more broader perspective that is going to feed into the national conversation about nation building, about building the economy and building sustainable systems around that industry to bring about the change that we need to desire. For now, what I can say is that as the goose that lays the golden egg, the oil industry must be used as a catalyst for change to improve or diversify the economy and bring in other areas so that we don't have to rely on this mineral that has a terminal date. For the question about the host community, I think Nigeria needs to migrate from dealing with these issues in silos. We obviously need to take an integrated look at the region, review the master plan, look at the action plan, sit around the table, and it's not going to be done by three wise men sitting in an ivory tower and coming out with a solution for the Niger Delta. No. We have had a lot of exodus in terms of even the companies that work in the region. A lot of them do not have their headquarters in the region. So if I'm going from Imo State and I want to apply to ExxonMobil, for instance, for a job, I have to get on the plane and go to Lagos for an interview. And of course, you deny the region of some of the expected benefits. So these are the things that we're saying, that it is not yet Uhuru. There's quite a lot of gaps, but we need to put the seriousness. I agree with you. There's been a lot of talk shops, a lot of lip service, but there comes a time when we need to walk the walk and talk the talk. And I think we're faced with this pandemic, with those realities. There's nothing that's going to be the same again in the world. There's no more normal. So we also need to get moving as a country.
I want to talk about local content, and I want to talk about local content as a panacea to the development of the region, because one would have thought that, you know, if we can push local content, then we can get a lot of development in the Niger Delta region by getting jobs for young people. But we don't see so much action here. Back in the 80s, I can say we did better. We had the likes of PTI, Petroleum Training Institute in the forum. But that place today is a shadow of itself. What we have in return is almost a university that hardly pushes its own weight, and that's the Federal University of Petroleum Resources in Ogbromo, which a lot of people say it's a duplication of what we have already. So how can we deepen local content? And I'm talking about institutions, you know, that can create that enabling environment for people to get the skills and deepen local content. What are you doing as regards that? What should we be doing as regards that?
Again, I agree with you totally on the issue of local content. It's on the front burner in the National Assembly. I can confirm to you that we're not only seeing local content from the perspective of the oil industry, but as an enabler for job creation and for turning the economy around. We have commenced the process of putting a new bill, making a new law that will expand the jurisdiction of local content to include other sectors. So be it telecom, be it mining, whatever it is, not just oil and gas, to ensure that we are pushing the country in the right direction. But let me just quickly state this. Local content cannot be viewed or considered in isolation from the KAMA Act. Because from a KAMA perspective, once you can prove that a company is registered in Nigeria, it is seen as a local content company. And that's not entirely the case. You would have expatriates coming in and putting 1 or 2 Nigerians on the board of their companies and positioning to play in areas that should be otherwise for the exclusive preserve of Nigerian local companies. That is unacceptable to me. We need to ensure that everything that a Nigerian can do, first of all, is done and is given to Nigeria. And then, of course, the board that we have today, NCMB, have made a lot of tremendous progress in the region. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had a virtual conference on this local content issue. And the DG of local content reeled out the progresses that have been made. I am not saying that we're there, because certainly not, but by legislation, we intend to, first of all, stabilize and increase the span of attention on local content issues and ensure that we don't have to waste resources by engaging in foreign engagements or contracts where we can take advantage of local content in Nigeria. So if you have, for instance, an EPC contract, if you don't need to go for a factory acceptance test abroad, or if you don't need to take 3 expatriates and maybe 2 Nigerians out, and if there's anything you can do at home to save the resources of wastage, we do it. So we're looking at a holistic, like a bird's eye view on the local content issue. I expect that the new law, once it comes on board, would actually address some of these issues, and we'll see the progress. I also know that in the Senate, there's talk about setting up a local content commission that will actually drive some of these things. But that's not the focus of the 9th House of Representatives. We're actually looking at streamlining government operations so that we bring in more efficiency. What is needed in this whole sector is efficiency. We don't see the oil resources, the oil deposits as the problem itself. What we see is the management of the resources of oil and gas and the extractive industries. So with local content and the Petroleum Industry Bill and some of the other key pieces of legislation that we're pushing forward, will galvanize, harmonize, and ensure that we make progress in the right direction.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Henry Nwawuba, for joining us. I would have loved to ask you about where you stand with regard to the National Water Resources Bill, and also your thoughts on Igbo presidency in 2023. But we don't have any more time, but you've done very well. Thank you for joining us.